My half-sister tried to steal my lottery winnings, but my grandparents' lawyer had other plans. My life has always been a bit of a Cinderella story, but without the fairy godmother and with a significantly more malicious stepsister. My mother passed away when I was 5, and my father remarried a year later to a woman named Brenda. Brenda already had a daughter, Tiffany, who was 2 years older than me. From the moment Brenda and Tiffany moved in, my life became a constant battle for affection, attention, and even basic necessities. My father, a kind but ultimately weak man, was completely under Brenda's thumb. He worked long hours and, when he was home, he was often too exhausted or too unwilling to confront Brenda's manipulative behavior. Tiffany quickly became the golden child. She excelled in school, was naturally athletic, and had a charm that could disarm anyone who wasn't living with her day in and day out. I, on the other hand, was always just there. My grades were decent. I was artistic but not particularly talented in a way that garnered praise, and I was often clumsy and introverted. Brenda made it clear, through subtle digs and overt favoritism, that I was an unwelcome addition to their perfect little family. My clothes were hammer-downs from Tiffany, my room was the smallest and coldest in the house, and my opinions were routinely dismissed. Father tried to intervene sometimes, a gentle word here or there, a small gift he'd sneak me, but it was never enough to counter Brenda's constant erosion of my self-worth. Things escalated significantly when I turned 18. My maternal grandparents, who lived a few states away and had always tried to maintain contact despite Brenda's thinly veiled attempts to cut them off, invited me to spend the summer with them. They were wonderful people, and that summer was the first time I truly felt loved and valued for who I was. My grandmother, a shrewd and intelligent woman, noticed the subtle signs of neglect and emotional abuse I'd endured. She didn't press me for details, but she watched, she listened, and she made a promise to me that summer. "You will always have us, darling. Always." I didn't fully understand the weight of that promise then, but it would come to define my future. When I returned home, things were even worse. Tiffany was preparing for college, and Brenda was pouring all her energy and resources into making sure Tiffany had everything she could possibly need. My own college aspirations were met with a shrug and a suggestion to consider community college for a year or two. My father, feeling guilty, offered to help me fill out financial aid forms, but Brenda scoffed, "She can get a job. We are not made of money, and Tiffany needs a good start." It was a constant reminder that I was expendable that I did get a job, working part-time at a local diner while attending community college. I saved every penny, knowing that I would eventually have to escape. My grandparents continued to be my lifeline, sending me care packages and calling me every week. They encouraged my artistic pursuits and sent me books on various subjects, feeding my intellectual curiosity in a way my own home never did. They never once spoke ill of my father or Brenda directly, but their quiet support was a powerful antidote to the toxicity I lived with. A few months after my 20th birthday, my life changed overnight. I bought a lottery ticket on a whim, something I rarely did, and I won. Not a small amount, but a staggering $25 million before taxes. I was in complete shock. I didn't tell anyone immediately. The first person I called was my grandmother. Her calm, steady voice was exactly what I needed. She told me to take a deep breath, to find a lawyer, and to not tell anyone else until I had a plan. She connected me with her personal attorney, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Evelyn Thorne, who specialized in estate planning and family law. Evelyn was a godsend. She advised me to set up an anonymous trust, to claim the winnings through a limited liability company, and to keep my identity completely secret for as long as possible. She also advised me to move out immediately, before anyone found out. I followed her advice to the letter. Within a week, I had quietly moved into a small apartment several towns away, telling my father I'd found a better paying job and needed to be closer to it. He was sad to see me go, but ultimately supportive, probably relieved I was no longer a point of contention with Brenda. For a year, I lived a quiet life. I continued my community college classes, now with the freedom to pursue whatever subjects truly interested me. I volunteered at a local animal shelter, something I'd always wanted to do. I learned to cook, to garden, and to simply enjoy the peace of having my own space, free from Brenda's constant criticisms and Tiffany's casual dismissiveness. I invested a good portion of my winnings, diversified my portfolio, and lived comfortably but not extravagantly. Evelyn ensured everything was handled discreetly and ethically. I finally felt a sense of control over my own life, a sense of security I'd never known. My grandparents were delighted for me, but they also urged caution. "Wealth can change people, darling," my grandmother warned. especially those who feel entitled to it. I knew exactly what she meant. Then, the inevitable happened. About a year and a half after I won the lottery, a local news story broke about a mystery millionaire who had claimed the winning ticket from my hometown. It was vague enough that my identity wasn't revealed, but it mentioned the exact date and location where I'd purchased the ticket. The news spread like wildfire through the town, and eventually, it reached Brenda that I received a frantic call from my father. "Honey, did you hear about the lottery winner?" he asked, his voice full of excitement. "It was from the convenience store you used to go to. Imagine if it was you." I feigned surprise and said, "Wow, really? That's incredible for someone." He sounded genuinely happy for the anonymous winner, and I felt a pang of guilt for keeping it from him. But Evelyn had been clear. Tell no one. The call started shortly after that. First, a text from Tiffany. "OMG, remember that lottery ticket you bought? What if it was you? LOL." I ignored it. Then, Brenda started calling. Multiple times a day. I let them go to voicemail. Her messages became increasingly demanding. "I know it was you. Don't you dare ignore us. We are family." Eventually, she escalated to threats. "If you don't call me back, I'm going to tell your father everything." I finally called Evelyn. "It's starting," I told her. She calmly instructed me to block Brenda and Tiffany's numbers for now and to inform my father, gently, that I was indeed the winner, but to keep the details sparse and to reiterate that I had handled everything legally and responsibly. She also told me to prepare for a family meeting. I called my father, my heart pounding. "Dad," I started, "there's something I need to tell you. I was the one who won the lottery." There was a long silence on the other end. Then, a choke sound. "My God, honey," he whispered. "You did it. I'm so proud of you." He didn't ask for money. He didn't demand anything. He was just genuinely happy for me, a relief that brought tears to my eyes. I briefly explained that I had followed legal advice to keep it quiet and that I had set up a trust, and he understood. He told me he loved me and that he always knew I'd do great things. This, of course, was before Brenda got to him. A week later, I received a certified letter delivered to my new address, which I'd stupidly let slip to my father during our brief, happy conversation. It was from Brenda's lawyer. It stated that she, on behalf of my father and Tiffany, was seeking a fair and equitable distribution of my lottery winnings. The letter claimed that since I was living under their roof when I purchased the ticket, and they had provided for my upbringing and education, they were entitled to a significant portion of my winnings. It even had a clause about emotional distress caused by my deception in keeping the winnings secret. I felt a cold dread settle over me that I immediately forwarded the letter to Evelyn. Her response was swift and reassuring. "Don't worry," she said. "This is standard opportunistic behavior. We'll handle it." The family meeting was arranged at Evelyn's office a few weeks later. My father, Brenda, and Tiffany were there, along with Brenda's aggressive-looking lawyer. I walked in with Evelyn, feeling a strange mix of fear and resolve. My father looked uncomfortable, avoiding my gaze. Brenda looked triumphant, a smirk playing on her lips, while Tiffany had an air of smug superiority, as if this was all a foregone conclusion. Brenda's lawyer started by laying out their case, emphasizing Brenda's role as my stepmother and primary caregiver, how she had selflessly raised me, and how my winnings were a family asset due to my minor status at the time of ticket purchase, which was false. I was 20. He presented a breakdown of what they considered a fair share: $10 million for Brenda, $5 million for Tiffany for future educational and career opportunities, and a smaller but still significant amount for my father to compensate him for his years of hard work providing for the family. The audacity of it took my breath away. They were essentially demanding over half of my winnings. My father finally spoke, his voice wavering. "Honey," he said, "Brenda thinks, well, she thinks we all deserve a piece of this. We are family, after all." He couldn't meet my eyes. It was clear Brenda had completely twisted his arm. Before I could respond, Evelyn leaned forward, her expression unreadable. "Mr. Peterson," she addressed Brenda's lawyer, "I've reviewed your claims, and they are, frankly, without merit. My client was a legal adult at the time she purchased the winning ticket. She was not financially dependent on your clients, as she was working and attending community college. Furthermore, the notion of emotional distress is entirely baseless." Brenda scoffed. "Baseless? She kept millions from us. Her own family." "Ms. Brenda," Evelyn said, her voice dropping to a dangerous calm. Let's be clear. My client was an adult, legally entitled to her winnings, and under no obligation, legal or moral, to disclose her private financial affairs to anyone, especially not to individuals who, according to documented evidence, routinely neglected and emotionally abused her. Brenda gasped, her face reddening. That's a lie. Is it? Evelyn raised an eyebrow. Because I have here extensive documentation compiled by my late clients, Mr. and Mrs. Peterson, my client's maternal grandparents. She pulled out a thick file. They meticulously recorded every instance of neglect, every derogatory comment, every financial disparity they observed over the years. They kept detailed logs of denied opportunities for my client, of withheld funds meant for her, and even of instances where Ms. Brenda actively sabotaged my client's relationship with her biological father. They also documented the financial support they provided to my client because your clients refused to do so. My father's face went ashen. Tiffany looked shocked. Brenda, however, was fuming. This is outrageous. Slander. It's sworn affidavits and meticulous records, Evelyn countered, holding up a document. And it's all part of a larger legal instrument, known as a testamentary trust, established by Mr. and Mrs. Peterson shortly before their passing. This was news to me. My grandparents had passed away peacefully in their sleep just a few months prior, and I had been devastated. I knew they had left me a small inheritance, but Evelyn had never mentioned a trust of this magnitude. Evelyn continued, in their will, Mr. and Mrs. Peterson explicitly detailed their concerns about Ms. Brenda's influence over their son, your husband, Mr. Peterson. They expressed their profound disappointment in his failure to adequately protect and provide for his daughter, my client. As a result, they amended their wills to disinherit Mr. Peterson entirely and leave their entire estate, valued at approximately $12 million, directly to my client, free and clear, with the explicit stipulation that it was to ensure her financial security and independence, specifically from your clients. The room went silent. My father looked utterly heartbroken, staring at Brenda with a mixture of betrayal and despair. Brenda's face was a mask of pure fury, then it crumpled into disbelief. Tiffany looked absolutely devastated. Furthermore, Evelyn continued, her voice unwavering, the trust also includes a provision. Should any party, specifically naming Ms. Brenda and Ms. Tiffany, attempt to lay claim to my client's lottery winnings, or any other asset she may acquire, the trust automatically distributes an additional $5 million to a charity of my client's choice, specifically designated to support victims of familial emotional abuse. The legal fees incurred in defending against such a frivolous claim will also be deducted from the trust, effectively reducing any remaining portion of the grandparents' estate that might have been marginally contested by Mr. Peterson had he not been disinherited. Brenda's lawyer, who had been looking increasingly uncomfortable, cleared his throat. Mrs. Peterson, he said to Brenda, this changes things significantly. The grandparents' estate, and the explicit conditions of this trust, severely undermine any claim we might have regarding a moral or financial obligation from your stepdaughter. Brenda turned to my father, her voice shrill. You knew about this, didn't you? Your parents, scheming behind my back. My father finally snapped. No, Brenda, I didn't know. But what I do know is that my own parents disinherited me because of you, because of how you treated my daughter. He stood up, his chair scraping loudly. And you know what? They were right. You are a terrible person. He then looked at me, his eyes filled with genuine regret. I'm so sorry, honey, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I should have protected you. I love you. He then walked out of the office, leaving Brenda and Tiffany stunned. Brenda's lawyer quickly ended the meeting. He knew their case was dead in the water. The combination of my adult status at the time of winning, Evelyn's airtight legal defense, and the devastating revelation of my grandparents' trust completely dismantled any shred of their argument. The documented history of abuse and neglect, corroborated by my grandparents' meticulous records, also painted them in an incredibly negative light that I, in the end, Brenda and Tiffany got nothing. My father, after a tearful apology to me, moved out of the house. He eventually sought therapy and slowly started rebuilding his relationship with me. It was a long road, but we are getting there. He admitted that Brenda had been manipulating him for years, and while he regretted his weakness, he was determined to make amends. Brenda tried to spread rumors about me in our old town, claiming I was a heartless millionaire who abandoned my family. But Evelyn had already preemptively released a carefully worded statement through a local media outlet, outlining the true nature of the family dispute, emphasizing my grandparents' legacy, and essentially shutting down Brenda's smear campaign before it could gain traction. The local community, many of whom had seen Brenda's true colors over the years, largely sided with me. Tiffany, who had always ridden on her mother's coattails, found herself without her primary benefactor. Her college plans were significantly scaled back, and I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was struggling. I felt a fleeting moment of pity, but then I remembered years of her sneering at my aspirations, her casual cruelty, and the feeling quickly faded that I continued to live my life quietly, focusing on my passions. I never touched my grandparents' inheritance directly. Evelyn ensured it was managed separately, growing steadily. It served as a powerful reminder of their love and their unwavering belief in me. The lottery winnings, however, allowed me to pursue my dreams without financial constraints. I established a foundation in my grandparents' names, supporting young artists and animal shelters, honoring their memory in a way that truly mattered to me. The whole ordeal was traumatic, but it also brought a strange sense of closure. It ripped open old wounds, but it also allowed them to finally heal. I found my voice, I found my strength, and I finally understood the true depth of my grandparents' love. And I learned that some battles are won not with aggression, but with quiet preparation, unwavering resolve, and the unwavering support of those who truly care. The money was a blessing, but the affirmation of my worth, after years of being told I had none, was the real prize.